All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Galley. Karen, how's it going?
It's going great, Michael. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. If you can,
Good.
give us a rundown. You're the co-owner and president of Patient News and Practice Zebra. So what is that?
So, Patient News is a full service dental marketing agency. We've been exclusively dental for over 30 years. I know by looking at me, you wouldn't have guessed that, but it's true. So, that means we cover all spectrum of marketing execution. And you mentioned Zebra, that is our software product within that service mix. And it covers everything from marketing attribution down to the penny that's spent in the practice, call tracking, call scoring, team training, critical KPIs for marketing success, as well as communications modules, online scheduling. So that's in and itself a marketing beast that works for your practice.
Nice. That's wonderful. So
Yeah.
we're excited to have you on today, and we're going to be talking about something specific, the mistakes we make with marketing and how to avoid them. But first and foremost, like what are some of the common mistakes, most mistakes that you see?
Okay, so as we've been at this for 30 years, you can imagine we've seen them all. And there's a lot. And as a matter of fact, there's so many opportunities to make a mistake in marketing that I've sort of bucketed them into three areas. So the first is strategic mistakes. And this is at the very beginning of the marketing process. You can make errors that run through, right, impacting your overall results for marketing. The second is operational mistakes. And these are things that you're doing in practice that might limit your marketing results capabilities. And the last one is executional. So this is right down at the campaign level in terms of what you're executing for paid media or print marketing or whatever. Those are your executional mistakes. So those are the three buckets. And we see, a lot of mistakes in each one of those areas.
Yeah. Okay. So strategical, operational, execution. If you were to say, Karen, out of these, let's knock them out one by one. Strategical, I guess. Those are ones that make errors that impact the whole shebang.
Absolutely, the whole shebang. And it really starts with the practice and the identified, mission, vision, core values. And of course, that leads right into your differentiating features. So if you haven't sorted that piece of the puzzle and really nailed down, what your points of differentiation are going to be relative to the competitive market area, that's one challenge you're going to have because the focus of all of your efforts will not be directed effectively. So that's the first and foremost on the strategic side. I've got, tons of notes. The next thing would be the identification of that unique selling proposition and the differentiating feature. And sometimes dentists feel like there's nothing that differentiates me from anyone else. We're all a service provider of dentistry. But in fact, that's not really true. It's almost like, how do you envision your practice running? What does that picture look like for you? You could be a low volume but high value provider. You could be a spa-like environment. You might want to make things easy and efficient for busy commuters. Every practice has a unique value proposition, and it's really important to nail that down. The next thing is the deep dive on your demographics. What is the area that you're practicing in? Who are the competitors? What are they doing in terms of their marketing execution? Who are the patients, their age, their income? Are they homeowners or renters? But beyond that, what are their spending habits and what is their persona? We really need to get in to do all of this marketing sort of background research, again, in order to effectively target and make sure that the services you're focusing on are what the market is going to respond to. Who are they and what are they going to respond to? I think more recently we've seen, marketing is a lot about me and my story, and that's important. And, you've got a passion, but it's really more about who it is you're targeting and what they want. Who lives in your community within a reasonable drive time, which is another analysis. Who are your high value patients right now that are in practice? Like, let's plot those geographically and see if there's like audiences in the community of your current high value patients. So all of this, research goes into informing the entire execution. Another mistake at the strategic level is your brand consistency across all channels. We know it's a multi-channel environment for patients now. They may see you on a billboard, receive a direct mail, they're researching online, they're looking at reviews, that whole patient communication in practice. It needs to be a seamless branded experience. And we see a lot of disjointedness in, some of the campaigns that we review. And it's really critical to have that consistency. And the last thing I guess I pointed out or was going to point out today regarding the strategic mistakes is the allocation of resources and budget towards your marketing efforts. So you've done all this great research. You want to generate new patient flow. You want to reduce your patient attrition. You want to increase your patient value, identifying those goals, and then putting appropriate resources towards it. It's very difficult as an agency when practices are in secular decline, and they come to you with a minuscule budget and expect, tremendous or terrific results. And of course, whatever the plan is we're going to develop for you, it will meet your budget expectations. But then you also may have to temper your expectations for what results are going to look like. A great time to invest in marketing is all the time. As an agency, we spend marketing multi-channel, and as long as it's delivering results and you're analyzing the ROI of all of your campaigns and you're looking at the high-level results and how the practice is being impacted overall, then you need to allocate those resources on an ongoing basis. Nothing makes me more upset than when I'm on a Facebook site and I see a dentist, I've just opened my practice and I've got no money for marketing. What should I do? And okay, that's a reality of their situation, but you've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in your training, in your operatories. Where is that budget allocation to attract the right patient that you want in practice? It's something to be mindful of when you're in the early stages of practice development, is just thinking about that investment. And it should be an investment, not necessarily an expense. I've got a client that I love, and he talks about marketing, but spend to the level that you want to grow. So if you're a $500,000 practice and you want to grow to $1 million practice, start spending from a marketing execution standpoint at that level to drive the results forward. That's Travis Campbell, the practice whisperer, who's been a client for about 6 years. He's written the book on marketing as it relates to insurance, et cetera. That's his quote.
Yeah.
So I've talked a lot. Those are, some of the big, huge strategic mistakes. Did that make sense to you, Michael?
Yeah, no, definitely. So it sounds like we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5, 4 to 5. But one thing I wanted to ask, and I'm going to dive deeper on some of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
How often should we be analyzing this information?
Do you mean the overall strategic plan?
Because you said allocating the resources and the budget. You know what I mean? And then looking at it
Okay. So at the campaign level, when you're executing a direct mail program or you're executing a paid media program or investing in your SEO or a regional event, whatever you're doing, those should be, essentially micromanaged. I mean, you should be seeing the results of those campaigns populating in, or maybe not populating in your case. Maybe it's more of a manual, as they call, you're entering a referral source. But the beautiful thing about Zebra is all of that data and results is auto-populated in the program. But at that level, you should be looking at it all the time. How are your campaigns executing and tweaking your budget against those results? These greater strategic things, if you get it right at the beginning, your mission, your vision, your values, I would suggest you would just revisit that on an annual basis and kind of say, is this still who we are? Is this the value proposition that we're still delivering and want to deliver? Because things do change, let's face it. Or maybe there's a new skill set that the doctor has onboarded or new technology that's going to change the direction a little bit. But at the campaign level, regularly. At the higher level strategic, I would say annually, if you want to look at those things.
Now, Karen, when it comes to the brand consistency, and I know we were talking about a lot of the times right now, it's like about my story. Would that differentiate, that So for example, if we were to ask a practice, hey, what makes you different? Oh, we care. We care so much about our patients. Then you ask the next one, we care. So we care even 2 times more than them, right? So it's like
That's a
we just
challenge.
we just kind of care. Would the
Yeah.
ourselves make the difference? Like, okay, maybe talk about ourselves more, or how do you see it where we can split the
I,
difference
I
in?
I think it's absolutely wonderful to feature, if it's a solo practice, feature the doc, the maybe the family, their interests and pursuits, but that's not the core area of marketing messaging and how marketing works the most effectively. How marketing works is starting with the patient and what they are interested in. And it's great that you're passionate, but you're right. A lot of people are absolutely passionate about what they do. I'm passionate about marketing. That doesn't differentiate patient news from other marketers who are also passionate about what they're doing. So I would suggest you do have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to make it all about you, and that's
Mhm.
your message. You want to make it about them and what they want. And it all comes down to the science behind it. And that's where we're skipping ahead a little bit to the executional side of things, but the right call to action, the right message to the right person at the right time, even in terms of website design and setup. It's about the science behind that and what's going to drive the new patient flow. I mean, you're lucky if you've got a tremendous brand image that you can leverage and you can make your site, for example, about you and your team and your passion and everything else. I just would give a word of caution that if you don't have the science behind it and the data and it's not fast, sometimes we see video will be slowing down things a little bit. If it's not fast, if it's not easy, again, I'm going back to the executional level, but if you have a paid campaign and someone has searched on aligners and you just direct them to your website homepage, they've got to start searching again. That link
Mhm.
needs to be to the aligner page on your site. Like these are small executional things that are just so important at the end of the day. So just make sure that you're making it about the patient experience, the patient needs, the patient wants. And at the same time, hey, highlight what makes you different maybe as a practitioner. Passion's probably not a big differentiator, but if you have some type of education in a specific service execution, or maybe you're really involved in, local sports organization and, a smaller community and you're church minded, whatever the case may be that makes you unique and special, it's fine to share that too.
Nice. Okay. So then one other thing, and you brought it up, is when you see it too, right? Like a startup kind of comes up and then they're saying, hey, I have no money at all.
Yeah.
What would you recommend if they were to ask you, like, just
Geez.
give me a
Yeah, the
number?
no money thing, I would say starting with community awareness type activities.
Mm.
Get out in community, make sure you're known. The internal team training element and asking for referrals. I mean, you will have walk-ins and walk-bys and making sure that the team is not losing opportunities on the call. If they get a
Mhm.
call coming in or a patient coming in, make sure they're capturing that, asking for referrals, getting reviews, start building from like ground up marketing. If you're looking for something more immediate, obviously having a site, that's SEO optimized, whether or not you can initially afford to invest further in SEO or paid media. But that's where, you start from the ground up and you look at the building blocks. And once you're, more established, you don't even really need to be more established, but once you, get your feet about you, then you really need to look at the marketing channel because we touched on earlier, it really truly is a patient journey. And that starts with awareness. And this brings us to another subject, which is that direct mail and paid media. And lots of, docs potentially think, oh, direct mail's dead. I'm
Mhm.
only doing digital. But from my perspective and from our client's perspective, that's couldn't be further from the truth. As a matter of fact, I think we just this morning executed a blog on direct mail and actual ROI and results. But that's the awareness piece. How are you going to be known as that new dentist, in community? And then they move to the research and online search, or maybe start with online search. You need a fast, optimized website, and you need to be able to effectively convert. Maybe that's an online scheduling tool. Another big mistake, and I know we've kind of flipped back from mistakes, but a
Yeah.
mistake there is not having appointments available in a very short time frame for new
Mhm.
patients. I had a client the other day and just checking out their, just doing an agnostic on their whole campaign, went online, and their first new patient appointment was January of 25. And I said, like, stop the presses. This is
Yeah.
not going to work, And as a matter of fact, they could not control that schedule as effectively as they'd liked, and they pulled it down. And now it's a form fill and it's working beautifully. Online scheduling works great for some offices, but again, this is where the diagnostic of these things and mistakes can be made if you're not looking at all aspects of these campaigns.
Wonderful. Okay. So then the operational in practice mistakes.
Operational. Operational. Okay. So this really comes back to, first of all, the knowledge of the team and what you're doing. Do they know your vision, your mission, your differentiators, your value proposition? Do they understand that? Do they understand the value of a new patient and how important that new patient is to the practice? You're probably aware that a new patient in the first year spends double that of an existing patient, closer to
Mhm.
2,000, where existing patients spend 1,000. So you need that steady stream of new patients, and your team should understand that. And then there is the all important conversion of calls. So I just pulled the data, the call data from Zebra. As a matter of fact, we've got hundreds of practices connected. A practice that's producing at a top level will be
Mhm.
answering 97% of calls
Oh,
live.
wow.
Average, though, is 75%. And of course, there's a bunch that are far below that in order to get to
Mhm.
the average. So imagine the difference of just answering 25% more calls. Because if you know your conversion rate already, you know that just answering more calls is going to result in more business. You talk about what offices can do if they don't have any money. Focus on call handling, and for no more money, you will generate more new patients and more new patient production. The conversion side of things, so our top clients are converting. So each call that becomes appointment at 82%, the industry average is 52%. And of course, again, there are those that are underperforming to that average. That's a 30% variance in how they're converting calls to appointments. And if you just run the math, it's easily done. You can actually, there's a predictive analytics calculator right in Practice Zebra. You can toggle all these metrics. You can see your current metric and how your team's performing. You can toggle it and say, what if I were to answer 10% more calls? What if I was to reduce patient attrition or loss by 3%? What if I was to convert more of those calls? What about if I increase my average patient value by introducing a new product or procedure? You can toggle all these metrics and then get a trajectory of where practice production will look over time with changes to these metrics. So it's so important. It just makes such an appreciable difference. And those are the types of operational issues. Also, operationally, failure to measure. We talked
Mhm.
about earlier, just failure to have the full visibility of your marketing results, maybe because you've got some disparate partners or whatever the case may be. But what are those key performance indicators at all levels and at the campaign levels? You really need to understand. One thing that differentiates Zebra, I would suggest, from some of the other platforms, it's very marketing streamlined. And with that complicated patient journey, we can layer attribution's the big question people have. Where does the patient journey start and end? It takes 7 touches. How do I know how to attribute a new patient? And we can take it a step further with address matching. We do
Mhm.
phone number matching, address matching, form fill, online scheduling, internal email communication, and we pull all those metrics in so that we can take probably the deepest dive that you can have in terms of marketing attribution. So
Yeah.
that's a mistake, not knowing your numbers, not knowing what is delivering your ROI. And then operationally, failure to manage patient communications at every point in the journey. Once they become a patient, it doesn't stop there, right? You're reminding your patients. If a patient hasn't been in a while, you're sending them a reminder notice. What if you have a dental membership plan that you'd like to expand upon? You want to communicate to non-insured patients sort of on a cadence towards an upcoming appointment. What about what you're doing for patients in between sending them a bill or having them pay? You need to communicate some value add. An e-newsletter is a perfect thing to slip in there, even maybe just a couple of times a year. You don't want to inundate inboxes or getting full. But what about that value add when the patient is not sitting in the chair or paying a bill? How are you touching base with them in between appointments that's adding some value for them and reminding them of your value and service? So all of those patient touch points, asking for reviews. God, that's a huge one too. I almost blew it there.
Yeah.
Reviews are critical to your success, in particular, online success, and the recency of those reviews too. So you
Yeah.
need a good review tool.
Interesting. So this is,
Yeah.
can remind me, like, do you guys do this for someone, or do you just provide them the data and then they're like, hey, this is it. You got to look at the data on your own and figure it out? Or you actually...
Yeah, we have dedicated consultants, marketing consultants, and account managers that you are paired with as a practice, and they go through all of the data and metrics with you at your time frame. We recommend quarterly meetings, strategic meetings. Of course, we're watching things all the time and making strategic changes if we're executing at that campaign level, as I was mentioning earlier. But we like to have either office manager, doctor, decision maker review of the marketing scenario at least quarterly, but depending on the practice and how things are being executed, maybe everything's on track and it looks beautiful and we'll move that to a biannual meeting. But we are there to assist every step of the way, and there's a designated account manager for each practice location. I should say too that it's not necessarily a solo. Our platform and our programs are built for DSO. They're enterprise level. So if you're a consultant or you're a group, you can see all of the data for all of your locations consolidated, including highlights in green and red, who the top performers within your group are in certain KPIs and metrics, who the bottom performers are, and everything is executed at an enterprise level. So if you're a consultant and you're trying to keep track of activity for all of your clients, or you're a DSO or a regional manager for a DSO, and you want to see things bucketed in a certain way, then we have that enterprise solution for the KPIs and marketing attribution.
Nice. Okay. I like how you mentioned convert calls to appointments. I think it was Dr. Shaheen Safari, I believe his name is, where he said the point of the marketing is just to get the lead to you, but the converting is that's on your team. Right. And if they're not making it happen.
No, that's absolutely right. Like, oftentimes the issue is not with the marketing agency. I mean, certainly campaigns fail. They're not all perfect. And that's why you need to analyze things on a go forward basis. But at the end of the day, the marketing company is there to deliver leads. You hope, quality leads. I mean, you don't want to fill the funnel with crap either. That's why targeting and execution, and our direct mail, for example, is newsletter format, high value, a lot of content, differentiating it from a postcard that's just a special offer. So then it comes to the operational issues on the inside. And that's where that call tracking, call scoring. We do have tools within Zebra. We have video content. So we identify that why the callers are not booking. And those are bucketed. 26% of calls, they had difficulty answering insurance questions. 15%, there was no appointment available at a convenient time. And you can take those buckets. First of all, you can communicate with those patients who did not book. You get missed call alerts or missed opportunity alerts. But beyond that, you have the data available to you to help to train the team, and a video series in the case of Zebra. If Mary's having difficulty answering insurance questions, she can go to XYZ video and train up on that subject. So we do have those tools that can assist on the team development side.
Yeah, nice. Okay, awesome. And then now execution, the bucket execution, which I feel is more like what we see people talk a lot about, right? Like, hey, the Google Earth
Sure.
was doing all that stuff. So what are the
Yes,
mistakes?
absolutely. So, lots of mistakes can be made at the executional style. I'm probably the executional side. I'm probably the furthest in our organization away from execution, but our team and I did speak with our director of VP and
Mhm.
VP of business development, and she's overseeing our executional team. But on the digital side, obviously, having an online presence and in all the channels where your patients are, make sure that you are in the right channels where your patients are. Make sure that it's optimized, it's mobile optimized. There's nothing worse than having a scenario where you're on your phone and there isn't a click to call. And then you're trying to grab a pen and write it down, or you say, forget it, I'll move on to the next one that I can just make a quick click to call. SEO, online reviews. We touched on online reviews. Who wants to go to a dentist that has, 3-star review, 23-star reviews versus someone who has, 200, 4.8-star reviews? It's just so critical that you have that review tool. There's lots on the paid advertising side. The key, I'm back to SEO and I'm jumping around a little bit here, but the keyword research, which informs both of these areas, SEO and the paid strategy. But it's so critical to do that research. What are your competitors in terms of the keywords execution? And really, it's those top 5 keywords. I mean, you can have keywords coming out the yin yang, but what are the core keywords that are really driving the search? You can't reinvent the wheel on how people search for things. So
Mhm.
you got to make sure you're on the ball with all of that. I mentioned on the paid strategy, not linking directly to what they're searching for is a huge mistake. On websites themselves, don't make little operational errors, misalignment, spelling mistakes, call to actions not in easily clickable or accessible areas. Yeah, there's just so many. The timing of an executed strategy, the content development. We do still know that females are making most of the buying decisions based on healthcare. So your content needs to resonate with that female head of household who wants information to make an informed decision. And that's where that content strategy comes in. Offer strategy. Offer strategy is related to your market area, your competitive environment, your existing mix of products and services. You don't have to discount dentistry, but there's alternatives to that. That's an important element. Responsive design, fast loading, clear navigation. Like there's just so many areas that
Mhm.
you just need to be very mindful that you're working with a partner that is very knowledgeable and strategic and looking at these things on an ongoing basis and making sure that your results are being optimized.
Is there any areas, Karen, where I guess one of these matter less than the other when it comes to execution? Like, for example, let's just say we went with a marketing company who did like a free analysis, right? And they did an analysis and it said, hey, your web speed or your page loading speed is so low. Oh my gosh. But, it might be like a couple milliseconds slower. So
Right.
are
I guess
you,
it's relative. Mhm.
is there one that's like, that's not as important as like, hey, you misspelled a ton of stuff kind of thing, or you know what I mean? Or
You know
maybe
what? I would say if there's one that's more important than optimizing for SEO, it's right
mm,
at the very beginning of the web development process. Like if you don't have that right, all the other stuff is just going to be superfluous. Like you've got to have your site developed. The optimization for Google My Business, like that. It's all in those initial setup phases. I mean, all the other stuff's important in execution, but if you don't start with the groundwork and the
mhm.
basic framework of what is going to be an effective site that can be optimized, then that would be your biggest mistake. That would be the most
Gotcha.
important thing, I think.
Okay. And then you mentioned SEO a couple times. So like I guess some people, and you've probably seen this, they say, is this enough or am I paying too much for SEO? And then some people say like SEO is just a fancy word. Don't even like look into it that much. All you got to do is just pump out content. And then there's some people who say yeah, SEO is everything. Like that's where I get all my patients from. Focus on that.
Yes, I would say SEO will deliver what you put into it. I mean, that's the best way that I can describe it. If you don't put anything into SEO, you don't focus on it, you're not going to get anything. But if you do expend the time, the energy, the investment, it does deliver a strong return. There's no question about it.
Mm.
I don't know what better way to put it than that. It's important. It's
Yeah.
critical. Yeah. It's
So what's like a
critically.
reasonable budget for that then? If we were to say like, hey, I want you to pay, and then, someone, how do we know we're overpaying or if there's such thing as overpaying?
That's a good question because every practice and situation is different. And I'm just not the best person to answer that. So I'll hold that. If you or your listeners are really interested, then contact patientnews.com because the experts we have in those areas will be able to answer those kinds of budgetary questions, given your circumstances, your demographics, your competitive environment. Like, really, every scenario is different. It's really hard for me to answer that unless we can take a deeper dive into
Got it.
what's going on in the area and with the practice.
Okay, awesome. So then these are the three buckets. Within those three buckets, there's a lot of nuances, right? Like where we can make mistakes
Yes.
and that can lead to other mistakes and things like that. So then how can we maximize our marketing investment when it comes to this and make sure we're not hitting every single mistake on the way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say choosing a partner that can be trusted, making sure that you're following the process of strategic, operational, executional. Yeah, I think those are the things. Having the right partners, having the trust in your partners, really dialing into the results and the ROI data, using data to ensure that you're redirecting funds appropriately. The last thing I will say about ROI, because it's counterintuitive, but it's like that old adage, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Although it's critical to take a deep dive on the direct ROI from each of your marketing channels, keep your eye on the ball in terms of the high level results for the practice. Is new patient flow trending positively? Are your goals for marketing being met? Because it's really interesting. Like, clients will say, I'm not interested to hear about address attribution. Like, I'm only going to attribute a phone call from a direct mail piece. But then, curiously, we look at their web metrics. And after they've delivered their direct mail to the community, their online traffic skyrockets and their website, generates 30% more new patients in the next 2 months. I'm sorry, folks, but correlative data is a thing. You can't ignore correlative data, or you can, but at your peril. I think what you really need to look at is your marketing within your budget? Is it delivering the overall result that you set out for the practice? Because attribution's never going to be perfect. But you want to make sure that you keep an eye on that correlative data and how that, patient journey and touching all aspects of the patient journey is delivering the overall practice result that you're looking for.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. So then, have you seen, one of the last questions is like any trends in mistakes? So for example, hey, throughout 2020, a bunch of people were making these many mistakes or this specific mistakes. Yeah. And then this year, maybe like, it looks like everybody's making this kind of mistake right now. It's most common.
You know what? I think maybe during COVID, a lot of people took the time to refresh their website, or whatever it was, website content. We're seeing a ton of sites come our way. First of all, get rid of the COVID content now. Okay. We're beyond that. I mean, maybe not totally, whatever, another subject. But yes, we're seeing a lot of sites with right now either not doing anything to optimize the site. Like you talked about earlier, I don't need SEO. I have a site, there it is. It's like a brochure online. So not taking the advantage of optimizing that, to drive results to the practice is one thing. Outdated content. So yeah, I think it's time to cycle, to take a look at that web presence maybe again now. If you had your site updated in COVID, that was 4 years ago. You need to take another look at things, and it might seem like a monster to attack, but it's really not if it's done in a systematic fashion. But I say that's what's going on right now is a lot of refreshes are required today. Bring it
Okay.
up to the current, the 2024 standards, 2025 standard.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, 2025. Awesome, Karen. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Absolutely. Patientnews.com. Patientnews.com. Come check us out.
Okay, so that's going to be in the show notes below. And Karen, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.